What's up, guys? Brandon here. I wanted to just take a quick minute and just share a concept with you that totally changed my life about 10 years ago when I was graduating high school when I was about 18. And this is something that changed. It's called a philosophy. It's something that changed the way I viewed success and failure. And I'm just going to share it real quick. This is called the slight edge, okay? What this does, that's kind of small up there, but what this does, the slight edge, it explains how success is not one momentous event, but it's a lot of small decisions that compounded together over time create a huge impact in your life. And so a lot of success people think about as like, what was that one thing that you did? Well, here, I'm gonna share a really quick story with you. I want you to visualize a massive flywheel, 100 feet tall, 100 feet wide, and it's on bearings in the middle, and there's a handle on the edge of it, and your job is to get this thing rotating. So you go, you grab the flywheel, and you huff and you puff, and you pull down, and with all the effort you could possibly muster in your body, the thing barely starts to even budge, and then with enough momentum and enough energy, you finally get it a couple more inches, and it's moving, and then eventually you start to get a foot, and then you keep going, and you're pulling, and then 3 feet, and then you go on and you go on and you go on, and eventually this entire flywheel spins a quarter way of a turn, and you're exhausted. Well, what happens is all of a sudden you're at a half turn, 3/4 turn. Eventually this whole thing turns around 360 degrees, one entire rotation. Now that next rotation will be a little bit easier. So you keep pushing and heaving, and then the next thing you know, you have a few rotations under your belt, and then next thing you know, 10 rotations. And after a long enough time, all of a sudden this massive 100-foot flywheel is spinning at a momentous speed. All of a sudden this thing is just carrying tons of inertia, and it's zooming. Now try to slow that thing down. That will take you out. You cannot slow it down. It has momentum of its own. It'll keep going even if you were to stop spinning it at the moment. Now if you were to ask the person who started spinning this thing, hey, what was that one pull that you put on the flywheel to get it moving? What was the one spin? You'd be like, that's a ridiculous question. There wasn't one spin at all. It was the thousands of attempts that I took spinning this thing to actually get it moving. And that's the way that success works, okay? If there's not one momentous huge occasion, it happens in the small daily disciplines. Every single one of those pulls on the flywheel was equally important, and it created a bigger monster. So the point is that your daily habits are going to compound. A great example of this is after graduating high school. Let's look at any period of time, about 10 years. There's a saying that goes, time will either promote you or it will expose you. And what that means is, whatever you're doing when people aren't watching, whatever you're doing in your quiet time, whatever you're doing when you're all alone, that will eventually make itself known. So if you're sitting there and let's say you're reading 10 pages of a good book by yourself when nobody's watching, or you're sitting there, that might take 30 minutes, or you're taking 30 minutes of your time and you're watching some mindless TV show. Not bad. Someone does that for one day. You're not going to be able to tell the difference the next day between the guy that read and the guy that watched the TV show. You could do that for a week. You wouldn't know the difference. Let's say you do that for a month. They wouldn't seem too different from each other. I mean, the guy reading the book, he may have some cool examples or source to share with you that he got from his book, but let's say you do that for a year. You're going to start to be able to tell the difference. The guy that's been reading, he's got maybe 10, 12, 15 books under his belt. That's starting to change his character, and it's starting to displace negative thought patterns that he once had. It's starting to show up in other areas of life. His character is getting enhanced. Whereas the guy watching TV, he's probably just started drifting a little bit. He's caring less in other areas of life. Not that watching TV is bad, but it's just an example. 10 years of that, you would certainly be able to tell the difference. So we're gonna look at high school. This is the success and failure curve right here. Hopefully you can see this. Hopefully that shows up okay. Yeah, you can definitely see that. So success and failure. So we have the success curve up top and the failure curve. Now you're gonna look at, this is when you graduate high school to 10 years later. Now you could have two people relatively the same as far as education, background and life and that sort of thing. And depending on the choices that they make, you'll be able to tell a massive difference. Not 1 year down the road, but 10 years, you'll start to be able to really see it. And what happens is the two people, let's say the one person eating a cheeseburger every day on the bottom curve, the one person eating a salad every day, they're gonna look about the same for a long period of time, and you won't be able to tell the difference. Now what'll happen eventually, you hit something called exponential growth or decline, and you start to break away and you have a divergence, and this is called a tipping point. So you hit a tipping point and then you dramatically go the other direction. So what happens is you get to a point where you have so much either positive momentum, it's hard to come back, or negative momentum where it's almost irrecoverable. And an example, the bottom end of that spectrum would be a homeless person in San Francisco on the street. And they're at a point where they're almost so buried that coming back is almost impossible. So you might be asking then, Brandon, why doesn't everybody just ride the success curve if it's just a bunch of small decisions? And that's a very great question, and here's the answer. It's easy to do the things that are gonna make you successful, yet it's also easy not to do. And so if success happens, it's actually quite a boring process. Nothing crazy going on. If you were to follow a successful person around, there's nothing momentous really happening. They're just following daily routines, habits that work for them, that are geared towards success as opposed to geared towards failure. And if you compound those over a long enough time, you're gonna see a massive difference in results. Here's another important point. You can only grow from where you're actually at, not from where you think that you should be. As I ran my personal training business, I ran into this all the time. And even in my personal life, I used to, let's say you used to be really fit and used to work out 6 days a week, 7 days a week. But life happened, you got away from that, you haven't been doing anything, you've been eating like crap. All of a sudden you want to get back into shape. So what do? I'm gonna start working out 5 days a week. I'm gonna just sign up for this crazy diet program. You do it for like 3 weeks, fall off, you fail, you never come back, and that is considered a fail. So what happened? You tried to start from where you thought you should have been the whole time, not from where you're actually at, which was totally stagnant, doing nothing. What would have been better in that case? Maybe 2 days a week, maybe 3 days a week, maybe 1 day a week, something consistently done until you master it, and then slowly adding in more, mastering that, slowly adding in more. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the slide edge. It's extremely powerful. Just always think when you're making a decision, say, is this gonna serve me over a long period of time, or is it gonna serve my goals and my heart purpose, or is it gonna take me away from that? And that's a good focusing question. Once you get in alignment with your values and what you want, say, is this gonna bring me closer or further away from that? And that's a great way to measure if you're making a good choice or not. So hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next week.